Ladies and gentlemen, welcome tonight to a very special event from All About Reality podcast. The man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Goodwin, my boy Goody, is out there in Seattle. I'm broadcasting from Philadelphia, and we're going live with our first ever Listeners League auction. You're staring at a Reality Sports Online draft room. We're doing it live. Goody and I are going to be working a team together, trying to navigate commissioning the league and doing all sorts of things. What do you think, Goody? Can we handle all these balls in the air at the same time?
It's going to be tough. Hopefully we'll keep it fairly clean language-wise. I'm looking forward to this. Trying to break some ground here, give this to our listener base. 16-team Superflex, going to be insane. The quarterback's interested to see what the prices will look like on that. So I think we'll get that going fairly early. And just, we got almost all our owners in. I think we got one. Looking forward to talking to Bernard. We haven't had him on the podcast yet. So Bernard Fowler is coming on. Going to be hard for you and I to navigate actually doing the auction while giving color commentary as well. But I think we'll do our best with it. So I guess we got 10 seconds and I'm about to throw the first guy out.
Awesome.
So
I think it's going to be clear you'll like our strategy. It is no joke and no mistake to most people. We're looking at a league that is 16 teams deep. It's a super flex league. So this should give you an idea of what guys are going to go for. Goody and I talked beforehand, and there he is on the board. The player I least like on any of my teams, the nemesis that ruins my reality, but often wins for people in fantasy. That's Aaron Rodgers. We're going to see how
and we've gone like pretty deep right already. I mean, we're already at about 95 million. 3 years, like 3-year offer for 85 million to the Air Raid Broncos. Right now, Bobby steals and deals Giants, his favorite team. He's at 4 years, 98 million. Brian Ross going 86 million, 3 years. This is getting heated already.
Can you see him going for less than 30 million per year, Goody? Like
he's already there.
On a 3-year contract, he's already exceeding that, as you can tell.
Yeah, on a 4-year, he's at 111. Yeah, we're going crazy with this. I think, Luke, the hardest part for you and me doing this, because we're doing the podcast, is I don't know that we're going to get into a ton of price enforcing on our end, but we'll see what we can do. We appreciate all the retweets from some of our previous guests. Matt Waldman just retweeted us. Matt Harmon previously. Mark Pesavento, who I'm glad is not in this league because I'd like a chance at winning for once. We're honored to have such a deep, loyal following this early on. And this auction is going just as we expected. It's pandemonium. I kind of feel like the last scene in Trading Places where Billy Ray Valentine and Lewis Winthorpe are going crazy on the floor of the Philadelphia Exchange selling frozen concentrated orange juice.
So the good news is for those people, I love that reference. I'm baffled at this point. So our last owner says he's in. You're looking at the gray screen for him. This is good to know for Reality Sports Online GMs that obviously it's going kind of seamlessly. We can give a hat tip to as usual, our faithful and our fearless CTO, Kyle English. This auction room is one of the cool innovations. Again, I can't say enough of how impressed I am with Matt Pepsin and Stephen Wendell and all the people that put my favorite fantasy football format together. And there he goes, 3 years, 116. Oh, no, it was right down to the wire. And there's people still going after him. He's up to 45 million on a 2-year contract. He's at 30. About 30, he's about to cross the $30 million threshold on a 4-year contract.
Right. Yeah, we're still going in. Basically, one thing that's unique about there's many things unique about our league, but 300-yard bonuses for quarterbacks, passing touchdowns worth equal amount of points as rushing touchdowns, half a point for completions, negative half for incompletions. First downs are worth half a point. So I think there it is. Aaron Rodgers, 4 years, 137 million.
All right. That's
Bobby steals and deals. Bobby Hoyt with the win on Aaron Rodgers. Here comes DeAndre Hopkins, guarded by many as wide receiver 1. Luke, we going in on this one?
I mean, I love me some DeAndre Hopkins. I'm happy. I think he is the best long-term bet that you have at wide receiver in the league right now. I don't think there's any question about that. And it just comes down to us in our format. give some of the idiosyncrasies of the format as we evaluate how deep
we're full PPR. I think receivers, especially receivers, are getting first downs. Are worth a lot. DeAndre Hopkins, a lot of volume in that Texans offense. We haven't got a bid in yet. It's looking, as we expected. The top guys are probably going for $30+ million a year. I mean, we haven't gotten in here yet. 4 years, $120 million right now is the offer that's on the table.
Yeah, that's still a good price for him. I say we hop in. We're not going to let him go for that. Okay. It's one thing to talk out loud, and obviously our league mates can hear us here. So you want to talk like upper end thresholds that you're comfortable with. In our writers league, the top wide receivers were easily exceeding this. And you and I both got in on that action. And I'm ashamed to say you got by far the better end of that deal. I went deep on Allen Robinson. That played out poorly for me. And he was in excess of $30 million per year. And you did a little bit better contract-wise on Odell Beckham Jr. So you and I are not afraid to pull the trigger on guys like this. Any reason why we're so reticent right now, Goody?
I think I'm just feeling out what the prices are, and honestly just doing this podcast. So here comes Bernard. He's looking to get into the podcast. So we got to get that link to him again. It looks like
sounds good
via email. Let's see if we can get him on that. He just sent a note in the room, in the chat room, basically.
Yeah, no, I see him there. So I'll work on that as well. But one thing too that's notable and to consider is that for our startup, we opted for 2 4-year contracts. We changed some of the defaults on the Reality Sports Online website. We stepped away from the default ones, and we're opting for 2 4-year contracts, 3 3-year contracts, and 4 2-year contracts. So that's what we have at our disposal, with some like options to extend later that we'll talk more about later in the podcast. So.
I apologize to those who saw when I clicked on the podcast on one of the wrong tabs, and you heard the kind of podcast in reverb because it was about me listening and on an active screen and talking, I guess. So Devontae Cleveland was so kind to point that out. Bonus podcast. Yeah, we're working on that. Devontae, the podfather, the one who kind of pushed me to contact Luke, get this thing started. So DeAndre Hopkins now up to 4 years, $160 million, which is actually what I have budgeted in my spreadsheet is what I thought he would go for. So now I think we're getting to the point where it's just kind of a couple owners feeling it out, seeing if they can milk an extra $500K or so on their folks. So this one will end
What
soon.
do you think, Matt? He just went for more than the top quarterback in a 16-team league. Is that something that makes sense to you on a super flex?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the number of elite level receivers are not. Here comes Josh Gordon, very polarizing player. Maybe Devontae trying to get him for a minimum deal or something. Let's see. Oh, he's up to 2 years, $24 million. We talked with Ryan Benini about this. I want no part of Josh Gordon, so I'm happy to watch this one play out on the sidelines.
Yep, and I have more affection for the man, but I do think it's good to know your teammates and league mates here. And Devontae has been as vocal a listener that we have. We're super grateful for him, as you say here. And we also know that he's a Cleveland guy. He has Cleveland in his church.
Just in his name. Just in his name, he actually hates the Browns.
Yeah.
But
fair enough.
Devontae Cleveland, if you look at if you go follow him on Twitter, he looks exactly like Steph Curry. Like the resemblance is uncanny. Oh, we got my buddy here and Josh Corson getting in the Legion of Griffin. Love the team name. Seahawks fan, lives kind of not that far from me. Play basketball with him. He's hopped in on the podcast league. He's going in on Josh Gordon. I mean, no negative news really. Josh Gordon goes for 2 years, $30.5 million, which I think is a decent price. I mean, a little risky, but 2 years should be okay. Here comes Le'Veon Bell. This should be an interesting one, especially given kind of the 1 year aspect of things.
I'm on the running back set. He's my favorite rapper of the elderly running back set. So like that adds a little value to him in my mind for sure.
I'll kind of date myself with this comment, but I feel like the best rap I've ever heard by an athlete was the Charles Barkley Nike commercial back in the days.
Very nice, very nice. Yes, I mean, any allusion to Barkley like wins my heart.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was good lyrics, succinct, and kind of captured his persona pretty well. All right, so far we're about 30 million 2 years on Le'Veon Bell. I'll tease this out, like kind of what I thought Bell would go for. I have him on a 1 year going for about 37.5. So it'll be interesting to see what he gets up to. And I don't know that I'm so accurate on that, but we'll see. It'll be really interesting. Still productive. I mean, Ryan Benini didn't like the volume basically, but I think and he's worried about like some wear and tear. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, you're getting one of the most productive running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, so Goody, I think we were doubling up there. I think something with my end of the spectrum. Our listeners are probably hearing two things all at once.
Okay, we should probably just make sure we don't have the screen open for the YouTube channel then. Like I wouldn't have that as a tab. That's what got me in trouble. I have that closed right now. All right, a few players deep.
Matt, am I on?
Is this Bernard?
This is.
All right, yeah. Luke's dealing with a little bit of a technical issue, so just give us a quick second.
Bernard, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
Good. So everyone, we'd like to welcome the Writers League champion, Bernard Fowler, to the league, and he's going to start commenting for us here.
All right, how's it going, guys?
Good to have you on, Bernard. This is Goody. Welcome. I think this is kind of right up your alley since you've been doing some annual averages and values. So we can give you a chance to color commentate on this crazy 16-team auction. Le'Veon Bell just went, I think, for 4 years, $108 million. Sonny Michel is up right now. The current offer is 4 years, $37 million by Kate Upton's TDs, which is Charles Norreed. And Bubble Boy and the Moops, great Seinfeld reference. Love that. $37.5 million, 4 years. So we're working at what are you concerned about Sonny Michel right now?
I am. He already had some issues coming into the NFL. Most notably some injury issues, fumbling issues. So he somewhat concerns me going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little interesting, like between a rookie draft and you kind of have to take the long view because we don't have a rookie draft in this. We're going straight into the auction. So it'll be interesting to see what he fetches. I mean, I think the range is looking reasonable right now. I mean, you probably give him a 4-year deal. I mean, you kind of worry about some of that knee cartilage and some of the injuries he had. But if he gains the prominent role in New England, there's tons of upside on that.
There is. It's a question of what this offense is going to look like in a couple of years, depending on if and when Brady ever retires.
Yeah, I'm confident in the reports are coming out lately that Brady and Gronk and Belichick are going to try to stay together through the 2019 season. To me, that's about as far ahead as we ought to try to predict, even in a format like Reality Sports Online. I don't know if I have any particular affinity for any of skill player that's attached to New England beyond those 2 years. So 4 years for Sony Michel seems like a bit of a stretch with your 4-year contract here. So we'll see. And our very own Bubble Boy landed that contract. So in 4 years, come at me, and we'll see how that goes. So, yeah. Goody, who do you think's coming next year? This is an interesting. We've seen some. Okay, here's a character, Mike Evans, a polarizing player who was the darling dynasty a couple years ago. And
Luke is holding me back from bidding on this because I know Luke isn't a huge fan of Mike Evans, so I'll stay out of this one. But I think we'll be making moves soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Bernard, weigh in here for us. We are, Goody and I are pretty torn. This is one of the players that we have the most distinct visions on. I think Mike Evans might be the second best wide receiver on his own team, not wise, but like in terms of potential. So what do you feel about that, Bernard?
He is I actually own him in our Writers League. Invested a 4-year on our initial auction. Really like the player. Some questions going forward, what this is going to look like. There's a lot of competition for touches in Tampa Bay right now. You know, Godwin, Djax, depending on how much Ronald Jones gets involved in the offense. You know, they just spent a first-round draft pick last year on O.J. Howard. Cameron Brate's still a part of the offense. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed right now.
Mouths to feed indeed. And do you think Jameis Winston is still going to be throwing him the ball 3 years down the line when this contract nears its end?
I think it's a lot sketchier now than it was just a year or two ago. I don't know if they're actually committed to him in the long term. I still think the probability is definitely he is going to be the starter for them for an extended period of time. But I think that possibility is getting shallower and shallower as we go on.
Fair enough. Well, 3 years and $26 million fetches him in our league, and so here comes
$26 million a year. Here we go. Odell Beckham Jr.
So beautiful, both on and off the field. What a handsome man. I think he's someone that Goody and I are not afraid to express our love for. Nor are Kate Upton's TDs or Bobby Steele's and deals. Like, this guy is already escalating. We're looking at 4 years, $26 million, $27 million. So things are getting out of hand quickly here. Yeah, we're now looking pretty big, and I do think it would be unfair of Goody and I not to at least weigh in a little bit here. So, a player's got a lot of love though when you can't even click the 4-year max button fast enough before people outbid you. So, so that's what we're looking at, Goody.
Yeah, he's up to 4 years, $139 million. Luke, if you want to keep going, that's up to you. I'll keep quiet and do the commentary.
Okay, no pressure. So here's the other fascinating part about Goody and I. We're trying this co-ownership thing for the first time. If any of you haven't tried it with one of your friends, I would recommend it. It really forces you to articulate your process out loud to somebody else, and you catch your own idiosyncrasies. You kind of identify players that you're willing to dig in for. And again, literally the button can't be clicked fast enough. This is a fascinating part of the reality auction room. He's sitting at 33, and Odell keeps telling me that he values the current offer more. I would imagine this is what his real discussions are sounding like right now. Like he's like, no, I'm worth more than that.
It's fun. It's funny because in the auction room, for those who are new, there's an RSO recommendation up in the left-hand corner you may see, and it's 4 years, $171 million, and he's approaching that. So
we're going back and forth with Bobby Steals and Deals, who has identified the Giants as the team of his particular affection. So I think we might be up against a competitor that actually has some hometown love for our boy OBJ at the moment. I think Bobby might be like brokenhearted a little bit when he gets traded to your Cleveland Brown to hang out with his boy Jarvis Landry. What do you think about that, Goody? So
yeah, he may be. I don't think he's gonna get traded to Browns, but at 164 million, I think we can let Bobby have him. I think Bobby has already got a couple players, so Luke and I had set a limit there of 4-year 160 million, so we kind of pushed the boundary a little bit, price enforced, and I still think that's a good get for Bobby.
Yep. Yeah, so Bobby seems to disagree that he's going to end up on the Browns as well. But yes, that last little bit there, obviously it's not a new strategy in auction draft rooms, but when you see someone that's wearing their heart on the sleeve like Bobby just did, that was beyond the comfort level for both Goody and I, but I knew we probably could have pushed him up over 170 million. And have you ever met a New Yorker? They're not going to back down from a fight on that. It probably would have just escalated, and Bobby probably would have spending more.
Yeah. Bobby Steals with a Z and Deals.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Lord Tariq and Peter Guns. I'm town baby.
Now, Bobby has. We should talk about his team for a moment. As you commented, he already hooked his team with a couple players. He's down to 111 million, and he's landed arguably the best young wide receiver and the best quarterback in the game with his 4-year deals. So he claims now that he can take a little nap. I would not recommend that particular strategy for your reality sports online.
Yeah.
So.
Bernard, why don't you hop in here? Hopefully you can see it. Deshaun Watson, 4 years, 130.5 million. People clearly not concerned about the knee. I'm concerned about this price tag, and just kind of the indicator of what it may mean for quarterbacks, given like a 6-game sample size, including he lit up like a defunct Seattle defense last year and kind of earned his stripes. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think when you look at he had a huge 5-game streak. And you mentioned the Seattle team where their defense was basically decimated with injuries at that stage. Interesting enough, the other 4 teams were bottom third of the league in terms of pass defense. So you've got to put that, take his great 5-game stretch, with a grain of salt.
Yep, and he ended up at 4 years, 132.5 million. It looks like. To Kate Upton's TDs. Here comes David Johnson. Bobby starts it off with David Johnson. Yeah, so let's see. Another top end running back. Le'Veon Bell's been in before so far. So what you see in an auction like this, like Bobby obviously has 2 players. He's throwing a guy out that'll probably sit for a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see because most of the teams have their full budgets right now. I also encourage you guys, we'll check Twitter every now and then for questions if there's anything live. Obviously, we'll keep this as evergreen content as a reference tool. We'll probably do this as a heads up for probably the first, I would say until about 6:30 or 7 p.m. Pacific time, just to kind of keep this going for kind of the top players, give you a feel for what's going on so far. Bobby says he's got 2 of the best players in the league. He's good so far. So, this is interesting. David Johnson, 4-year, 100 million right now to the Legion of Griffin. 3-year, 87 million Air Raid. What do you guys think? What do you think about David Johnson and comeback trail this year?
I love David Johnson. I love everything he stands for. I like the way that he carries himself. I think he's going to be a good running back in this league for a long time. The news out of camp today in Arizona is that their starting center went down. I always get jarred a little bit when the continuity of an offensive line that was as poor as Arizona's to begin with gets messed up. But this becomes a question for a GM as to whether or not they bet on the player or they bet on the team surrounding the player, because it doesn't look like roses in Arizona at the moment.
Yeah, Bernard, how many years would you be throwing at David Johnson in this auction that we're going through?
I would be comfortable with 3. I really believe they're going to re-sign him. extend him. He is on the older side for running back. He came in the league relatively late, but I think his receiving skills really insulate his value when you compare him to other backs, and it protects him against the offensive line problems in Arizona.
I tend to agree with you, Bernard. I have him in our Writers League. Love the kid. Liked him. Was higher on him even in his rookie season. He was one of those rare players that you kind of get all in on as a fantasy player. In most of my leagues, I've written out his career so far. So, Goody, we're comfortable going a little bit higher than this, so I'm going to offer that now. But he's been kind of stalling around there, so that's still below our threshold that we were comfortable with, and still came over the top of us.
It just spiked up.
Yep.
So yeah, he's up to 4 years, 127.5 million, and that looks like what he's going for. Josh Corson nailed him in the Legion of Griffin, 4 year, 127.5 million. The fantasy affliction is on the clock. Nominating is our buddy Tim to the north of us, one of our Canadian friends, proving that RSO is global. Here comes Derrick Henry, kind of an interesting, polarizing player who may or may not be in a timeshare. Probably on the favorable side of the timeshare.
Yeah, and a lot of the best experts still have him in their top 25, so we're looking like most of them are optimistic that he returns RB2 value. One of the things that this podcast can do for people is determine what an RB2 value is in a massive league like ours. And yeah, he's already getting pretty expensive, right? We're looking at over 15 million per year over the course of 2 years, and people seem less willing to drop a longer contract on him. Bernard and Goody, you think that's because you save your 3 and 4 year contracts for players that you're really in love with in the quarterback or receiver position?
Bernard, I'll let you go on that one.
That is definitely how I usually prioritize, especially in a league like yours with a huge quarterback premium attached to it. I think there's specific problems with Derrick Henry too. I think he's a guy 20.
He just went for good value though.
He did.
3 years, 39 million. That's where he ends up. I mean, I had him at 3 years, I think 48 million. So, I think that kind of works. Here comes Todd Gurley. All right, it's time to back up the Brinks truck. I don't think we're going to do it, but let's see what happens.
No, but I think this should be a point of etiquette, right? We know how high we're willing to go, and I think I don't want to wait around all night to see how far off that is from other people. So we went to there we go. that offer that we put out lasted all of a few seconds. A lot of people remember him carrying most fantasy teams to the championship last year. Mr. Fowler, I think you were one of the recipients of that beautiful run. Am I right?
Oh yes, he essentially won me the league for the most part.
Yeah, well, he and me basically, because my starting Tom Savage over Deshaun Kaiser had a good game against the Packers, so I'm still waiting for my fruit basket, Bernard.
Well done. I appreciate it too. Yeah, I would like to claim a lot of good coachmanship, but the reality is the rest of my team was just horrid for most of the year, and thank you for God Gurley.
Yeah, no, he's certainly fun to watch, especially in the passing game. And that was my big frustration with the Rams under Jeff Fisher. It was just like, and it's frankly, it's my frustration with the Falcons with Coleman and Freeman under Steve Sarkisian. I'm hoping that Sean McVay kind of unlocked the secret sauce to, show, Sean McVay, head coach, obviously, but kind of show what the value of receiving running backs. And Gurley went for 4 years, 155.5 million. Here comes Eli Manning. Could be a nice QB3 or something like that. Interesting. Oh, price value. He's already at 1 year, 11 million. So that ought to be interesting to see whether he'll stick at that. We're kind of establishing the market for quarterbacks here. Most folks are willing to give him 1 year. Think, hey, he's got Evan Ingram, he's got OBJ, he's got Sterling Shepard, he's got Saquon Barkley. So Eli Manning's up to 1 year, 16 million, which is well out of my comfort zone. But should be interesting. What do you think, guys?
I think it's interesting, as you say. It's one of my first drafts I've seen Eli Manning catching any action, and I think honestly we should be grateful for the kind of passion and intellect we have in our listeners, and I'm not saying that lightly. I actually think Eli is a really good candidate for a bounce back, and it's ridiculous to pin last year all on him. You described and detailed the weapons that he has, and I have a lot of confidence in his new head coach, Pat Shurmur, to scheme a really exceptional pro into some situations that can put him in a spot where he'll succeed, even in a tough division.
Yeah, it looks like he may be going 2 years, $30.5 million to Brian Ross. Yep, that's the winning bid. Oh, no. Bubble Boy and the Moops comes in at 1 year, $19.5 million. We're still going. We got Bubble Boy and the Moops against Brian Ross. Brian, change your team name already, buddy. I think almost everyone's got team names. Oh, there he goes. 2 years, $31.5 million for Eli, the man, the myth, the legend, Manning. All right, Poppin' Bortles is nominating right now. Love the team name. Hopefully, his Bortles on his team. If he has him as team name. Here comes Andy Dalton, similar maybe to the Eli Manning range kind of tier. Let's see what he goes for.
Yep, jumps up right into that relative tier. And this is an interesting strategy. I think a lot of people are attentive to the fact that we're 16 teams deep, that we'll need two quarterbacks. Andy Dalton is a serviceable second quarterback, and he went for 2 years, $13 million. So he came in slightly under Eli. It's probably about where we had him valued. So again, we're probably going to have to stop talking and start bidding at some point here, Goody. So.
Yeah, no, I know. We will. Here comes Saquon Barkley. Who's paying for zero sample size? I'm projecting Barkley going for 4 years, $140 million. Let's see what happens. He's almost already there. Could be a fantasy beast. 4 years, $150 million. Fantasy affliction. 4 years, $150.5 for Kate Upton's TDs. What would you be doing here, Bernard?
I would not be paying up this much without question. We have no idea at this stage what his role is. We know he's going to be a big part. Any team that invests a second pick overall in a running back is going to use that running back. We simply don't know. The offensive line is improved, but it's still a middling, run offensive line. He's going to be used in the passing game. We just don't know how much when you already have Sterling Shepard, OBJ, Evan Ingram. So it's hard to imagine how much he's actually worth.
It's really hard to put a market on it right now. He went for 4 years, $155.5 million. It's very similar to what Todd Gurley went for. And I mean, obviously, I'd rather have the proven commodity, in a better offense, if I'm, all things being equal. Here comes Legion of Griffin nominates Antonio Brown. He of wide receiver one fame for the last 3-4 years in a row. I mean, this one's going to go, for significant money. What are we thinking, Luke?
Well, I am really deferential to you on your view. On Antonio Brown, I think I'm already looking at you like a shorter contract for him given his age.
Yeah, I do. So like if you still like what we're doing here, then let's I don't like this though.
Yeah, it escalated beyond. I thought I was high on him, frankly, and it's already escalated beyond a price that I'm comfortable with. So and this tends to cut against both our strategies. And Bernard, I think I don't know if I can remember exactly how you played it in the Writers League, but I'm usually a lot more aggressive at the beginning of the auction. This shows a lot of confidence and experience amongst our co-auctioneers here to be this aggressive this early in a league that kind of demands depth from each one of our teams.
Yeah, roster construction is going to be interesting for your type of league, with so many starters relative to bench spots. With regards to Brown, I think we're at an odd stage where all these guys who have been number ones, Antonio Browns, A.J. Greens, Des Bryant's, Julio Jones, they're all around that 30-year-old mark. So they're on, we're starting to get to the backswing, and you're going to see some questions on how long people invest in these top wide receivers.
Right now we have the very polarizing Ezekiel Elliott on the table. The recommendation coming out of RSO for him is 4 years and $163 million. Anybody that watched like the Amazon series featuring Ezekiel Elliott, I'm not even confident he's going to be in the league in 4 years. He does not convince me that he's the kind of professional that will carry himself in that manner. But I think for this year, there's a chance he's RB1. So that's kind of where I sit on Zeke. How do you guys feel about him?
I'll hop in here. I mean, I think the volume and the role is going to be heavy. I think he's just a little bit of a goofball. Like, honestly, I don't know about I'm not so concerned about him conduct wise, as long as he, I think he probably figured it out a little bit getting suspended last year. So I think production wise, you're paying for him like you're paying for anyone else. He's 23, a little younger than Todd Gurley, and it's just such a prominent role in the offense. And I'm still buying that offensive line. I'm trying to inject some discipline into like my process. I really believe in process here. And, I think that, we'll be getting some values at some point here too, Luke. And, I think we kind of have a strategy, and we're seeing how it plays out. I mean, I do think you can't predict injuries, but I think these guys are all going to produce. So 4 years, $155 million seems to be the market for the top running back. So Barkley just got that, Zeke got it, and Gurley got it. And then Le'Veon Bell may actually turn into a bargain at this point. Maybe even David Johnson, same thing.
Yeah, no, I am feeling the buyer's lack of buyer's remorse about David Johnson at the moment. I think now's a good time. We're at the end of the first round. Speak to us about the different positions that are open again. Let's remind people what kind of starting lineups we have to fill out as we go along here.
Sure. We have a quarterback. We have 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then we have 2 flex positions and a super flex. We're carrying a little smaller benches, so that kind of normalizes a little bit. The quarterbacks may make 1 or 2 actually available in free agency, probably not. We also have some caps on how many quarterbacks a roster can carry. So that's 5. If someone in this league wants to carry 5 on an 18-man roster, that's probably not the best strategy. But, I think we have, with the contracts, we have 2 4-year deals, 3 3-year deals, 4 2-year deals, and then 2 1-year deals that you can convert to a 2 or 3-year deal at the end of the auction within 24 hours. So I think that, you can apply many different strategies and have success in this league. I mean, it's only 6 of these teams are going to make the playoffs out of 16, because I do want there to be some type of advantage for the top 2, for the people who treaded through the regular season with the top 2 records. Otherwise, I feel like when you get into a 1 versus 8 scenario in a given week, it's not like there's home field advantage or anything else. So we're pretty creative. Our last 2 playoff spots will be wild cards on total points. So very unconventional league, I would say.
Yeah, the Blake Bortles of reality is not highly regarded. The one in fantasy has been a quarterback 1 for the last 3 seasons. He just went for a steal in our league. If you go by that metric, he ended up at 3 years and $12 million per year. His teammate now, Leonard Fournette, is on the table. Given how much our running backs are going for, and given the RB craze in the league right now, I would not anticipate him coming in too low as we go along here. So yeah.
Right now he's at 4 years, $121 million, kind of similar to what Luke and I are strategizing via text, so hopefully there's no hackers here. There's some guy, we got some upper tier guys. A lot of good running backs have gone. So like foundationally, we'll see. Hopefully we haven't given up too much advice on the podcast. I think you'll get a real glimpse in, behind the hood when we start nabbing some guys, and spending our money. So I personally like Fournette a lot, especially, in league. I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns, good yardage. He's a better receiver than people give him credit for. But there's a lot of running backs still out there that can present some value.
The little yay from the crowd.
Yeah, that yay. RSO Superchargers, we love the name. Once Marcus Bernard is listed as a co-owner on that, so we could kind of see this auction. So you probably heard Bernard's speaker go there. So what do you think about 4 years, $131 million for Fournette, Bernard?
It's a good deal relative to those other backs. What do you think, Bernard?
Yeah, I actually think he's a similar type of player to Ezekiel Elliott. I think you're going to see similar workloads. I think you're going to see similar touches in the passing game. I think the huge difference is Dallas has one of the best offensive lines in the game, and they've got them locked up for years. And Jacksonville has improved this offseason, especially adding Andrew Norwell, probably the best offensive lineman in the free agency this year. So I like him. He's got a little bit of injury history on the lower body, but great player, and he's going to be the focus part of that offense.
Luck just went for 4. That was so Luck, who's been making a lot of news, went rather quietly while we were hearing from you, Bernard. He went in for 4 years, just under $25 million. I think if you're comfortable with the risk of his arm, you're in good shape there. Right. Here we go. I wondered about rookie quarterbacks and how they would appear in this particular format. Sam Darnold, who has the potential to start for the New York Jets this year, is already fetching 3 years and at about $6 million per year. I like the strategy. You're not looking at much more than a rookie contract, depending on how high he goes. You're kind of assured a starter with that draft pedigree. I think this is a wise move, and I think we're seeing again some smart strategy from players in the league. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting because of how few bench spots you have on how much you can invest in these prospects, I'll call them, where you don't know if they're going to be actual starters for you and you don't know if they're actually going to be usable during the year. I think there's 8 bench spots in the league, if I'm correct.
You're absolutely right.
That leaves a lot of limits, for injuries, bye weeks, just for underperforming players. So it's more of a risk with this type of league is how I see it.
You're not wrong, Marta. I think it does amplify a couple of strategies. We'll at least see them unfold on the teams that we're watching bid here. And I think that demands that you think about roster construction a lot. Goody's attempt to limit the bench is certainly comes into play here. And right now, for example, we're looking at a quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He's 30 years old, and there becomes a question like how many years ought to be offered him. We are in a league that loves him. Like, he is already exceeding like Andrew Luck money. He's at exceeding Andrew Luck money. So I guess that answers the question on how our particular league feels about Matthew Stafford. The lion is roaring, and I can barely stomach this as a Viking fan, to be honest. Like, he's in a tough division and is going to be playing some brilliant defenses. The Bears are on the up and coming. The Packers typically don't have a strong secondary, but typically are a very good team. And the Vikings arguably had the best defense in the league until they decided to do whatever that was in the NFC Championship game. So, this is way in excess of what I anticipated for Stafford. I kind of love our league already. I never saw this coming. His RSO recommendation is 1 year, $9 million, and he's currently sitting at 4 years and $119 million.
Yeah, prices are going crazy here.
It probably should be a point that, or a moment that we point out that the site does the best it can appealing to the default norms. Obviously, if anything, you walk away from this particular aid for you, and as far as evergreen contact, and when you get to hear from a champion like Bernard, and from the wisdom such as it is from Goody and I, like, you really ought to be making your own values, constructing that, and going in confident with those values ahead of time. It's giving Goody and I a lot of confidence to sit back on guys, and then pointing out to us times that we should have been more aggressive too. So speaking of aggression, we're staring at the top target for Drew Brees. And he's certainly fetching money that speaks to and to his role attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the league. Bernard, I'm particularly interested in how you feel about him here. He was another one of the darlings. You went Mike Evans. Michael Thomas is another one that people were kind of gambling on last year. Who would you feel more confident in owning out of the two Mikes at this point?
If I'm putting in a 4-year contract, it'd be Mike Evans.
Okay.
Just because of the quarterback uncertainty. We don't know how long Brees is going to be there, and what that offense is going to look like without him.
Luke, you want to text me?
How long has it been since New Orleans has been without Brees?
Right. So,
I love Michael Thomas, the player, though. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. No negatives, really. Great player.
We're looking at about we're 20 players in terms of bids. A lot of money off the board. Some really good money being thrown around here. Again, like, he's sitting at nearly 30 million. I would have been much more comfortable investing that in like OBJ. This clearly shows, again, team situation. And so Matt and I are starting to think clearly now as it thins out. Top level guys, the big names, the flashy players are coming off the board, and there's still plenty of them left. And do we want shiny toys like the Julio Jones, like the Alvin Kamara, like the Kareem Hunts of the world? Do we want those remarkably, staggeringly efficient players that have wowed the league in the past, like the Travis Kelce's, or the players that are the fantasy analyst darlings like Joe Mixon's? Like, these are the kind of thoughts that run through your head when you're sitting in an auction. Or do we want last year's darling, Devontae Freeman, who's coming off a knee injury, a young man, though, at 26 years old, right in the wheelhouse of those other running backs? I don't think he's going to go for as much as Leonard Fournette. What do you think, Goody?
Probably not, just with the concussions and whatnot too, and the fact that he's in a little bit of a timeshare. But I mean, I think he's already over like a 20 million annual average. I see that happening, especially with like what the running backs are looking like here. I think he just went 2 years, 49 million, and I think that sounds about right.
Yes, that's a price. That's well done. So here we go. Julio is going to be fascinating, right? Got paid in real life, 29 years old. Two schools of thought on him. One, that he's a bigger receiver that's breaking down, and we might be entering into the Andre Johnson twilight years with him. Other people who point out that he's still attached to an ascendant offense, an ascendant quarterback, and is himself one of the most remarkable physical specimens the leagues have ever seen. So he's right now has a slower bidding market than, say, Michael Thomas did. And there might be value here. You could have him for 1 year, 46 million if you're not confident about his longevity. And someone nailed him. So the fantasy affliction just landed him for 3 years, 92 million. I think that's one of the better values so far. I have to really compliment that one.
Here comes the first tight end.
Yeah, so take that away, Goody. I'm with you. Like this, he's an awesome guy. I've got him in our writers league for sure. Character, and he fetches a lot of fun. I mean, he's just a fun guy. Like, frankly, he gets a lot of attention for the right reasons. So
Yeah, you know what I like about this? I like just getting into the auction time of year. Like, I never really thought that Travis Kelce was 29 years old already. Now you see that he is, so it kind of helps me kind of helps frame my mindset for other leagues. Not that he's necessarily available. So I mean, I think someone's gonna get a pretty good value here. I mean, right now he's 3 years, 51 million. I mean, I see that, you know, he's probably the tight end 1 or tight end 2. I see him going for over 20 for sure. You know, 25 potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And he's the kind of player that's going to keep driving the market with name value and with his production last year. He just feels safe at a position where safety is hard to come by.
Yeah. Okay, 3 years, 61 million. Devontae Cleveland got him. Yeah, I like that contract. I think that's a solid contract. I mean, Luke, one thing as we're going and, you know, other teams are getting all these players, you and I have to, you know, Bernard, feel free to jump in and start taking over this at some point, because Luke and I do have to get some players. Here comes AJ Green, 30 years old. I mean, if Julio went for the one thing, this could be a fairly good value. So let's see what we got.
Yeah, I think AJ is going to be pretty comparable to what Julio is going for, and you know, maybe even a little less. He doesn't have quite as stable a situation with Andy Dalton throwing in the ball versus Matt Ryan, but I think he could come in at good value.
Yeah, there's a lot to love about AJ Green. I think it's impossible for the Bengals to get worse than they were last year. If I'm not mistaken, they were the least efficient offense in the league. They ran the fewest plays, or among the fewest plays, and some of the way that Dalton was battered, and the splits between Dalton, when Dalton gets time to throw the ball and when he's on kind of on the run for his life, are pretty staggering. So he's a really high-end quarterback when he's given time in the pocket, and more so even than most passers in the league. When he's forced to run or improvise, he's one of the worst. And last year we saw bad Andy, and I think there's a good chance that their offense will rebound to the point, not that like Joe Mixon's running wild in the league, but certainly the point where AJ Green, who we already know is a remarkable player, will be able to like perform in a really great way. And he landed 3 years and 26 million, again, right in the wheelhouse of what the other great receivers are. Probably a bit of a value there.
3 year 80. Yeah. Oh, it's still going. He's still going. Oh, no, just ended. All right. Here comes Kareem Hunt, guy I have in our writers league.
I'm expecting big things out of him once again. I think there's still questions about where and, you know, if he's fully back from a pretty devastating knee injury last season. There's going to be questions about, you know, how much they keep Mahomes in line. You know, they might want to limit him, just kind of avoid some of those turnovers, keep it in the run game. They'll really like him coming this up year.
The one thing that daunts me about Kansas City is if we're trying to win this year, early strengths of schedule metrics that I like, and actually that take into account defensive player movement rather than just playoff teams from last year, project a pretty rough road ahead for the Chiefs. Like they're going to have a rookie quarterback. They're going to be losing possession a lot, I think. And we just lost Kareem Hunt. He went for $30 million per year for 3 years.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah, it's hard to stay in your swim lane when everybody's kind of going crazy. Here's Will Fuller, very interesting receiver, 24 years old. A lot of speed, did really well in a stretch with Deshaun Watson last year. I think he could be a pretty good value.
I like Ryan's strategy here. He is a player, as you say, that just piques a lot of people's interest, but he's coming at a point in the auction when a lot of people have guys in mind that they're saving for, right? And so, but having said that, he's already fetching a good price. there's a sense in which you get that some people just want to run away from the auction with a like get it done. But he went for 2 years, 11 million. That's probably fair value.
11 million a year, yeah. All right, we're almost back to the front end. We've gone through 29 players signed in about an hour, which is actually not so bad. Let's see who's on the clock now. Philip Rivers.
Yeah, the P Riv, a graduation speaker at my alma mater a couple of years ago. So that's always likable at him. I believe at this point he has 37 children, one for each of his years on the planet. So like that's always speaks to his masculinity. People are loving him at 1 year, for sure. So what do you think, Goody? I'm actually let's put this on air. Let's talk it through. Like we both like Rivers. All the quarterback.
I like him in the system that we have with the completions and the first downs and everything else. I'm a little skittish at $30 million, like in a 1 year, like because of what that takes away from your other cap, you know?
Yeah. All our quarterback values at this point, though, to be full disclosure to everybody, are completely shot. They've been blown out. Yeah. Like they're not relative. So at this point, Goody and I have like adjusted that. We're being responsive to that. We still have the guys that we're going to target. Like Rivers is one of them. I'm way more comfortable with him here. Yeah. So so everybody can hear it talked out is for sure. Yes. And I do agree. D from our resident Eagles fans chiming in that Rivers is better than Eli. Might be a little Philly bias coming at you there, but I do tend to think Rivers is better.
Yeah.
So Rivers ended up going for 2 years, 24 million
a year.
Yep. So yeah, 49 million total.
Yeah.
So
here comes Devontae. Let's see who he's going to throw on the clock. Rob Gronkowski could present a value here, given what Kelsey just went for. It's up to 2 years, 34 million. What would you be doing with Gronk right now, Bernard?
Love Gronk. Probably in this format, I'm probably not going to be investing in him. It's just your quarterbacks are too valuable in this type of league. I'm probably not going to be spending big money on tight ends. Now, if he comes up as a value, I'm all for it. But
yeah, there's a few people bidding on him, including us. We're like in on this action. He's pushing 3 years, 74 million at this point. He's like, and there's a few people right at this threshold that are like the bidding back and forth pretty fast and furious. So people are obviously comfortable here. Yeah, so I think it's interesting. The Air Raid Broncos fans are coming in, a late Cowboy fan entrance into it. But yeah, Gronk, people apparently are confident that he's going to forestall his WWE career long enough to jump in on this. So
3 years, 75.5 million. All right. Let's see here. Hey Bernard, while we have you, right before we have to throw a player out, are there some guys you want to talk about, like maybe later on, that you'd be looking at?
I'm going to be interested. A guy I'd love is Marquise Goodwin. He's going super late, super cheap in most auctions. If you're wanting a piece of the San Fran offense, if you're wanting a piece of Jimmy Garoppolo, that's a guy I'm trying to target in any big league. Wide receivers in general, it's so deep that I'm usually going to be looking at the later guys. I'm going to look Emmanuel Sanders, Randall Cobbs. That's the kind of guys I'm going to be wanting in this type of auction.
Understood. What do you think? What about you, Luke?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's obviously guys that we have that we love. It's going to be interesting to see. I think there's a point now where we can't back down. Like we're invested. We know the guys that we want. It's going to be interesting to see how pricey they become. Like and right. Certainly some of the guys later on in the draft are fascinating. I too like Marquise Goodwin. I think he's a cheap, relatively cog in the offense that everybody loves out in San Francisco this year. And And I think maybe that Bronco offense is a little bit underrated to some extent. Cortland Sutton is apparently like a Greek god out in camp. That's all the reports coming out lately. So like, there's going to be some interesting things. Right now, we're staring at the last. Like of the big three tight ends. I think he's way undervalued. What are you talking? What, like, Goody? I'm hopping in here. I can't even like stand how low he's going for. I mean, this man hurt me in ways that most professional athletes don't. But like he's only 2 years, 16 million right now. We just got him.
That's not a bad value. I wasn't necessarily targeting him, but that'll work for me. Now we'll nominate his battery mate Carson Wentz, and see how crazy people get with him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I wasn't necessarily targeting him either, but he went. Your spreadsheet like had him right there, and I thought that was under, so I'm really happy. That was good teamwork there. I just jumped in because I saw him going so low. So our first player was kind of.
Sorry, and the irony is he went exactly for the money I had in the spreadsheet.
Exactly, like
two years, 33 million. I mean, you can't draw this up sometimes, especially with some craziness. But I'm sure everybody will start hopping on the chat and saying, "Oh yeah, congratulations, you got a tight end." We'll go after the skill position. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you going in on that, Luke, because I do think there's a good amount of value there. All right, we're on Carson Wentz. We're at 4 years, 130 million. So I think I don't remember what Watson went for, but he's fetching similar prices.
Yeah, has he exceeded Aaron Rodgers at this point? Are we looking at like a higher? Let's look back at Bobby's team. Aaron Rodgers is sitting there, 4 years.
136, it looks like. Yeah.
So Rodgers is still outstripping Wentz, but that shows the good value that Bobby got at the beginning by jumping in on Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that.
Right. I don't know. 4 year. Yeah, he went for 4 years, 132 million. Okay, we're nominating another one. Let's see. How about this guy? Nominate Davante Adams of the Green Bay Packers. See what people seem to think about him.
This is honestly a little bit of the man love between Goody and I. Like, he's being kind enough to nominate players that like he knows that I just don't want to see anymore.
Well, I mean, I like Davante. I mean, he's clearly wide receiver one in a good offense. It's just really a matter of like what you think what you want to do with guys. I mean, the concussion history scares me a little bit, frankly. I mean, he's also a guy who hasn't really hit 1,000 yards yet. I don't necessarily trust the other receivers in Green Bay to like draw coverage off of Davante Adams as well. So, I mean, definitely a wide receiver one, probably a wide receiver who can finish in the top 10 fantasy points for sure. But it's like depending what's your risk tolerance. So, Bernard, you're impartial in this. What do you think?
Adams is a void at most of the prices I have seen. He's usually coming in around what you can do. Julio, you're talking about a guy that has 1,400 plus yards is pretty well standard for him. Davante Adams is a player who hasn't hit 1,000 yards in a season yet. That's just a huge chunk of change. You're basically paying elite prices for a good player who's in a great offense with a great QB. That's kind of the situation I generally avoid because you're paying, if touchdowns drop off just a little bit, he can sink a lot further than what people think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Everyone seems to love like Randall Cobb this year as a value. I mean, Cobb to me is interesting as a value, but I still see somebody as a receiver who has trouble getting open. So that could be interesting to see what he does, what he fetches. All right, Jerick McKinnon on the 49ers. Let's see what I know Luke has talked him up a lot in the offseason, thinking that he'll go for a lot of money in one of his leagues that has very scarce running back free agency. I definitely like the role in the offense, but the question is, can he handle the workload in San Francisco?
Absolutely, and that's about as hard as you can hit that nail on the head. It's interesting too, as you walk through the auction, I'm trying to show people some roster constructions if you're following along on the feed. A lot of people have invested in at least a quarterback along the way here. Brian Ross probably has the most interesting roster construction. Pardon me, Bubble Boy. Our Bubble Boy seems to have the most interesting roster construction. Already 4 deep at running back: Devontae Freeman, Todd Gurley, Derrick Henry, and Sony Michel. It's interesting now, and still with nearly 100 million left to fill out the rest of his roster. So that's actually like an interesting start, given how few running backs the rest of us have. And McKinnon went for about 15 million per year. That's a much lower salary than we even saw, say, Derrick Henry, who went for 3 years, 26 million. Just comparing those two players, I like both of them. Derrick Henry went for 3 years, 26, and we looked at, 3 years, 26 per year, or pardon me, I'm reading that wrong, and Derrick Henry actually went for 12 million per year, so I actually like the values on both those guys there. So now we're looking at Jarvis Landry. Bernard, when we're talking about Jarvis Landry, we're talking about a guy in a new system, got paid a lot of money. He's advocating for better receivers to come play alongside him. How do you think about his long-term projections?
Long-term, I like Baker Mayfield as a prospect going in. So I really like him there. It's hard to envision him ever being the same type of player that he was in Miami, at least in terms of the workload that he was getting and the type of use that they were using. I don't see that same usage in Cleveland. For this year, he's a strict avoid for me. I envision Tyrod. He's going to be starting most of the year, I envision. And there's just not going to be the workload for him.
Yeah, for sure. So here's another player. Keenan Allen banged up for much of his career. Showed some promise with Phillip Rivers, who we don't know how long is still on the clock. And yeah, so now we're talking about a player like the bidding market already slows down for him in the range of like 3 years, $88 million. There's still a few teams in on him here. He seems like an interesting prospect in that like he has top 10 upside, might not have league winning potential. And it just depends on how you feel about the Charger offense. So yeah, as far as true number one wide receivers, we're getting back towards the back end of that. He's 26 years old, and the 3-year, $105 million recommendation is what comes to us from the Reality Sports Online network. And people are comfortable with like that. We're looking at he's definitely pushing up into the range of those other good, like the Julios of the world. And so, yeah, people are going to have to make a decision on how high they're willing to go at 3 or potentially 4 years for him.
He's great. I love him. You know, there's nothing else to say. He creates so many easy throws for Phillip Rivers, such quick separation, really easy slant routes. He's kind of, to me, is I call him the Jordan Reed of wide receivers. I mean, he just makes it so easy for his quarterback. And I think if you look over his last 3 years, his 16-game average is, north of 100 receptions per year, 1,300 yards. So no qualms whatever. On a 2 or 3 year deal, I love him.
And so why do you draw the line at the 2 or 3 years? As everybody keeps coughing up 4-year options for him here?
For me, it's tied to Rivers. I don't know if Rivers is going to be there. 3 years is about as far as I see with Rivers. I don't see 4 years. So I don't want to necessarily invest in that extra year if I can avoid it.
I got you.
Possibility that it's going to be a new QB. This is kind of my strategy. I try to avoid situations that I don't really know.
Yep. So yeah, we're coming to the end of it now. Looks like there's just a couple people left in on him, and he's up against that $30 million per year threshold, and we actually ended up landing him. That was one of the guys that both Goody and I agreed on that we ought to go get, and we went and got him. And so, Goody, now that we've spent some big money, how are you feeling about that purchase?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I like the Chargers. I mean, being someone who lived in LA for a long time, I mean, I love seeing them in San Diego. Just fun offense. I mean, Bernard, with the 4 years, I totally see the concerns, but I mean, I'm still looking at good. I think we're getting one of the best route runners in the game, and I think he even had an NFL special talking about how he runs routes, something that Mark and I talked about a little bit at Svento. So I love the precision of routes. I know Rivers loves them. I feel like the injuries were kind of some freak things, so I'm not afraid to pay for that.
Yeah, it was nice to be in lockstep on Allen, like for sure, because he came in at what we hoped to pay for him in terms of the yearly value, and we extended a year so we didn't bury ourselves in kind of the 3-year range at a much higher cost. And yeah, I mean it was one of those innovations that we had to make in mid bid, but my compliments to our resident Packer fan for driving that, and yeah, and so that's what we're looking at. We're looking currently at a team that consists of Keenan Allen and Zach Ertz.
Right now we got Ronald Jones on the clock. He's looking at 3 years, $32.5 million for Legion of Griffin. So we've seen some 2-year deals thrown out, some 3-year deals. Talk to me about Ronald Jones, Bernard. I know you have him in the Writers League, and I think that's because you got him at the end of the first round and value presented itself. What would you be doing with Ronald Jones here? Where do you like him just in a rookie draft, like if, outside the one that you participated in with us?
Yeah, I had him in my middle of the first round in terms of non-Superflex league. So, in that, 5, 6, 7 range of running backs, same range as, number 1, number 2 receivers of the rookie class. I love the potential of what he can be. I mean, he, outside of Barkley, I consider him probably the most explosive back I saw on tape. He moves differently than most of the other backs. There's a lot of great prospects in this, but he just has a complete different level. It's amazing to see. Once he gets past people, the defensive backs don't catch to him. He's just a home run hitter. I love on the potential to be on that Tampa Bay offense for a long time. I like that he's really young. That's not as important for our contracts leagues, but I still like it for running backs because I don't think people realize for running backs, the running back contract is the prime years for running backs. That's when they're at their top usually. So yes. Love him.
Can we talk about Alvin Kamara, who's on the clock now? Don't want to cut you off, but we're up to 4 years, $125 million by Devontae Cleveland, his team D-Lee. Got some fierce bidding going. I think some owners realizing maybe that the running back position is starting to erode. Maybe they haven't gotten their quote-unquote RB1. We're waiting for Kamara to come on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, as far as watching what he's going for, he's definitely a good deal relative to some of the other backs with whom he's viewed in a tier. And it just comes down to whether or not you're a believer in what kind of back he's going to be moving forward. Most people seem to understand that the kind of efficiency, which was literally historical last year, will probably not be repeated. But he's tied to a great offense, at least for the next couple of years. And he's tied to a good offensive line and by all accounts, a brilliant offensive mind. He's got all the factors that you look for. I think he's going to be a very good return on that value for this season. In the chat, Bobby makes a good point. So when we talk about receiver contracts now, the $36 million given per season given over 4 years for Odell Beckham Jr. looks very reasonable, knowing how much like these guys like Allen Robinson and Tyreek Hill are about to go for. And we're looking at Brandon Cooks, who actually is going for substantially less, a third of that right now. So Brandon Cooks was involved in some wheeling and dealing in our league. a lot of people are torn on. He's tied to a good young quarterback, bright offensive line, only 25 years old, 3,000-yard seasons to start his career. What am I missing here? Why is he going for so low relative to the other wide receivers?
What do you think, Bernard?
I think there's concerns about what his role is in the offense. We've seen the McVay offense through, formerly St. Louis, now LA, previously Washington, and basically no receiver in that offense gets a big market share. So you're going from Cooks, from two of the greatest QBs in our generation, to Jared Goff, which I think people question whether he's a good quarterback or if he's a product of the system. But I think those are your main worries with him.
It's fair. Now we've got one of the most likable and interesting players in the league, Juju Smith-Schuster. Coming on the board here, my nephew, who's a giant Eagles fan, is showing up to their preseason game in a Juju Smith-Schuster jersey, which speaks to, I think, his appeal to the youth, as people say. But yeah, like I think beyond his off the field appeal, a lot of people really like him as a player. So we're in on that a little bit for sure, and Goody's going to handle our bidding on him, and these folks are worth going after sometimes if you have a player that you believe in. So and so there's still a lot of teams in on this. We have several teams still bidding on Juju Smith-Schuster, and this is a fair range where he's at right now. I think a lot of people are willing to push it further than where it's at now.
Yeah, Luke, why don't you hop on text?
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
And yeah, so like it was reaching the upper echelon and where Goody and I are comfortable. But I liked dipping our toe in that, and we might still go after him a little bit here. Like he's not pressing too far beyond the outer reaches. I just think this is not near the end. I think he's one of those players that a lot of people want to have him on their team. So I think this price is going to end up a lot higher than we're looking at right now. If I had to anticipate it, there's still several teams involved in the bidding. So we go there. One of our league mates, I was getting a little nervous there, was commenting that she was winning with Bell and AB and Nuke. And I was like, that team is extraordinarily strong. And then I looked and like AB and Nuke were there, which I still love as a start for the team, but there was no Bell, which made me feel considerably better about our chances. So there we go. So, yep. So one of the last true bell cows is on the board here. We've got Melvin Gordon coming up. Very, very, very distinct player, and that's some of the best analysts in our game love him. Some people can't stand him and his sub 4 yards per carry. I wonder if he's going to fetch in that range that those other, and he's being driven up already. Our D Lee is like happening in there. So
yeah, Bernard, while we have you on for like another 45 minutes or so, hopefully, can you click on some of these teams and tell me what your initial impressions are of what people are doing in the auction and whose teams maybe you like, and be a little critical of what we have here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've talked about Bubble Boy. I think they knew what they were planning, and they've got a lot of potentially elite players. They loaded up at the running back position. So I like what they've done so far.
Okay, we got Rashad Penny, 22 years old. High draft capital with the Seahawks. Be interesting to see where he goes here. I've kind of made my opinions known on the Seattle running back conundrum and the offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Rashad Penny. I mean, obviously, when a team invests that much draft capital, I think over the course of a supercharged dynasty league like Reality Sports Online, there's definitely a perception of value. So I think that we're going to see Penny go for a pretty penny, no pun intended.
Yeah, so he's kind of stalling out here around the 40 million range over 3 years, or the 31 million. Like he's right at that 15 million per season. I think that's fine if you view him as a bell cow in Seattle. Goody and I happen to be of a mind on the Seattle offense. It is not. It's looking pretty shoddy. Reports out of camp. Shabani Ifedi, I think I'm saying that name right, like on the offensive line, is already buying some or drawing some ire from Pete Carroll, which is hard to do because Pete just blows sunshine at all of us all the time. And then Chris Carson's still there. We got CJ Process still there. So yeah, he ends up going for 2 years around 15 million. That's a fair price. That's a good gamble, I think. We're about 11 picks deep now in the second wave of nominations. So, and another quarterback finally comes on the board. So this one, let's let everybody can take a look at how quickly Cam Newton escalates. Apparently, he's not accurate enough for Kelvin Benjamin, but he appears to be accurate enough for our league mates.
I think he's one of those QBs where you have to look at what the scoring rules with your league. When you're having, I believe it's a half point for completions, a half point for incompletions, that really starts favoring the QBs that are the high volume, high accuracy, and it moves Cam Newton down the boards. Normally, he'd be considered probably mid-range QB1. I think you're probably going to move him down, and scoring to around the lower end QB1 tier with your settings.
I don't think you're wrong on that. And he ends up signing for what amounts to that tier. He's near 25 million over the course of per year over the course of 3 years. So that seems again pretty good. Here's Tom Brady. Some people refer to him as a small mammal that tends to live on mountainsides. So, but Tom Brady is going to be an interesting test case for a league that values precision and and what we're looking at is how many years people want to push him out. He's still sub the contracts of the best or the best contracts that have been given so far for quarterbacks. He's probably undervalued a little bit right here. So
Goody, you own him in the Writers League, is that correct?
I do. I signed him to an extension last year. So yeah, I think you love a guy, especially like we got touchdowns worth 6 points in this league. So I'll get in there a little bit.
Yeah, we're off the board already to give people some context. Rodgers, Wentz, Watson, Newton, Luck are all gone. Rivers is gone, and yeah, so we're getting to a point where people are up against the threshold where they're probably comfortable. And Goody and I are up against that threshold, like we're pretty close. We're still debating back and forth here.
Yeah, we just stopped actually. It's at 60. We were kind of on the same page. I mean, I don't like to have the same positions always, especially I'm sharing a team with Luke. I typically don't do that. So, like, having a little diversity from my Writers League team, can always be fun. It confuses the heck out of my family, but like when I'm watching the TV, I'm rooting for every player in every game. But it should be interesting.
This running back I have some familiarity with. Young Dalvin Cook came out of the gates like a fireball for the Vikings. Unfortunately, he was cut down by an ACL tear. And yeah, so we're looking at a young running back that's already pushing up into over $100 million for 4 years. And yeah. And this is where it's good to have someone you trust like Goody that's kind of has his hands on the reins too. We're in on Dalvin Cook. I'm letting him make the judgment call because I don't want to let my fandom cloud what's happening in front of me right now. So I think I think this is very good. I think there's a lot of us that are in on this player. All of us are still bidding here. I think Dalvin Cook's probably going to end up much higher than this just because of his youth. And I think no one is certainly getting a bargain at this point. He's being priced probably right around where his value ought to be. He went really high all over the place in terms of snake value in the Scott Fishbowl recently. In expert drafts, he tends to not escape the second round. So you're looking at like a pretty good value, a really highly valued player. The reports out of Vikings camps are all saying that he's ready to go right now, should the season start. And right now he's fetching a 4-year deal at $135 million. So speak to me, guys. Talk me off the edge here as it becomes apparent that he's not going to be on our team. Bernard and Goody, what do you think about Dalvin Cook and the kind of money that he's still going up? Like I said, I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So talk about this while this is going on.
Great player. The money that he's going for right now is at 4 years, $141 million. And that looks like what it ends. Scares me a little. He's, ACLs to both knees. He had all kinds of shoulder problems in college. The player can do anything, but there's just too many questions for me to invest 4 years in a player with his issues.
Yeah, I hear you here. Here's a player. I think what we have in Christian McCaffrey is another polarizing guy. He's a little guy. We don't know if he can sustain feature back workload. He's got a question mark for his offensive coordinator now in Norv Turner. And so we have a number of teams that are in on him, and he's already he's fetching a little value here. But the Panthers are offense in flux. They have another seeming redundancy in Curtis Samuel. They have DJ Moore that'll probably eat into some of his short yardage targets. And so Christian McCaffrey becomes a player that you ask yourself, how far am I willing to go in on these satellite plus backs in a PPR format? And if he was on like a typical rookie deal, then he seems like a great guy to have on your team if you started your league last year or the year before. And here he's already ascending into top back value. Like he's fetching nearly as much as the David Johnsons of the world. So this is what we're looking at. I don't know how much higher this is going to go. Tends to be the upper limits of what I've seen him in other drafts. But yeah, he's looking at 4 years, $121 million at the moment. And we're facing a world in which Christian McCaffrey apparently ends up on our team. So Goody, talk about your rationale on that.
All right. If people could see me on the podcast, I'm dancing a little bit. We kind of saw a cliff with running backs and wanted to make sure we got at least one of a certain type. I mean, I don't love giving guys 4 years, but he's 22 years old. He's Swiss Army knife and a good offense. I just, I personally like Dalvin Cook's talent as much. I just feel like we got a little bit of value there. And I'm sure Josh was pushing us a little bit on the price, maybe price enforcing. I mean, Josh, chime in on the chat and tell me if you genuinely were wanting him to, post-mortem. But I'm excited about having C-Mac. I think he kind of fits in with like the utility type guys that we have on our team.
Bernard, what do you think? That were you comfortable with the kind of price on him?
That's pretty well my max on him. I see him as a really high floor, kind of like maybe a light version of I'm going blank. Now I'm blank. In New Orleans, whom I think Kamara.
Okay.
I think he's one of those where 250 touches is probably going to be close to his limit on a yearly basis, but 80 catches every year for next 4 years, I could see it easily happening.
All right, we just saw Tyreek Hill go for a 3-year, $80 million contract at a 25 per year range. A player that I'm not in love with. Again, my concerns about Kansas City are well known, especially for the immediate future. I like Mahomes as much as the next guy. He's a quarterback worth throwing some money at, but I think it's hard to forget Alex Smith's historic deep ball efficiency last year, despite all his limitations. I just don't know how much more of a ceiling Mahomes can hit than was evidenced by that offense last year. And so Hill now splitting targets with Watkins. I just think you're going to have a much more frankly, a much wider spread to the target volume all over that team. And now we've got a really interesting test case. So, guys, I want to hear from you on this too. Lamar Jackson, Bernard, you already alluded to earlier that these running backs that are sitting here are probably these players that are sitting here that may not be starters this year are occupying a valuable roster spot in terms of roster construction. Lamar Jackson is already looking at least 2 years, maybe 4 years of $36 million or $8 million per year. So have at it, guys. Is this something that we should be a lot more interested in?
QBs are a good bet. We've seen time and time again. First round QBs, they get a chance. It doesn't matter whether they're good, bad. We've seen Blake Bortles not only play through his contract, but actually get extended. The same with Ryan Tannehill. Same with Andy Dalton. These bad to mid range QBs. If they're drafted highly, they're going to play out their contract, which means, especially for a league like this, you're going to get significant starts. And you're going to get significant fantasy points from any highly drafted QB. So they're a pretty safe bet.
Fair enough. He ends up fetching a significant price. And now Derek Carr is on the board, 27-year-old pupil of John Gruden. I read an article with a great headline today that Derek Carr's life is now like John Gruden's quarterback camp. So he was in the conversation for MVP 2 seasons ago. Last season hit a wall. There was all sorts of terrible things that happened to the Raider offense. And so that's what we're kind of looking at with Derek Carr. And he's being priced really well for a young quarterback. We're still looking at a 3-year, $54 million deal. Now it's inching up more towards the range that we saw from the other guys. I think people are getting a little bit tighter fisted with their wallets as a few of the owners of the league have crept towards that $100 million threshold. The lowest one, I'll click on you, Kate Upton's TDs, already has 2 quarterbacks in their pocket, Saquon Barkley, Rob Gronkowski, Brandon Cooks, but has spent $111 million. And the big stack at the table right now, Luca's Vikings, is sitting on $166 million, and they have 1 player purchased, Ronald Jones II. So it's kind of an inflection point in the draft, right, guys? We're sitting about an hour and a half in Eastern time at 9:30 p.m. What do you think is going through people's minds right now? Like, Bernard, what are you looking for at kind of a midpoint in the draft when you're going? Do you still have a couple studs that you're targeting and you're just kind of lurking and waiting on, or are you trying to hunt value?
What I'm really interested in seeing is there's going to be a spot where the QBs really start drying up in terms of QBs you're going to actually want to start every week. When you guys have, up to 32 can be started in your league, and there's only 32 QBs that actually start maximum, and that's not even including bye weeks. So I think there's going to be this kind of, like you said, an inflection point where people realize, oh, I have no QB, I need to get in. So I'll be interested to see if it starts driving prices up.
Yeah, as we say that, like, obviously those salaries are going down because we bid on a lot of running backs and those types of things. Here we go. Let's see. So we got Jameis Winston. Whoa. As we talked earlier with Bernard, we're not sure that Jameis is gonna, where his landing spot may be. If the Bucks, like, he could be coming into a situation where he's already owing. I think, does he have a 3-game suspension? So 0-3, 0-4, potentially tough schedule to start off with. A lot of offensive weapons, so that could be interesting. He went 3 years, $49 million to Air Raid, which I believe is Ryan's team, Ryan Nicholson. who's just started on the RSO platform. I think he's doing back-to-back auctions. Here goes an interesting guy. I'm very curious what he's going to do in this auction. It's Adam Thielen, stud last year, kind of came out of nowhere. 28 years old. He's already up to 3 years, 40 million on Luke's Vikings.
I'm making an obligatory bet. I have to at least try. Yes. I love Adam Thielen. I think this might be paying for last year's production, to be honest. I think so. Yeah. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver too. I don't know that I want to pay $28 million per year for a wide receiver too. So.
Yeah, I hear you there. 1 year, 28. See, I think this we'll see what it goes to. I mean, I think people are really banking on him with Cousins and like what the type of routes Thielen runs and excels at being the routes that Cousins throws. So I think it'll be interesting. I mean, he certainly was very productive and kind of got Case Keenum a nice contract. 3 years, $57.5 million for Adam Thielen, which could sit as a potential value actually.
I agree. Here comes an interesting guy too. This draft's golden boy, the #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, on the one of the league's flagship and most well-regarded franchises, the Cleveland Browns, known for their success and brilliance on the field and their fandom off it. So,
yeah, if you'd have said that about a week and a half ago, you'd have been sleeping in the backyard as opposed to downstairs in my basement. But yeah, no, well, it's gonna be interesting. Like I can't wait till like Hard Knocks. I can't wait to see that first episode of Hard Knocks, and really kind of see what the Browns. It's kind of funny. We'll see what happens with the Browns. I think Baker's already at 3 year, 47 million, bubble boy in the moops. And I think people have confidence in, kind of it's confidence / scarcity in the QB market. So I'm curious. I don't know the full demographic of all these guys who joined the league, but my perception is that a decent amount of them are younger than I, at least. So I kind of like the gunslinger mentality in this auction and the spending, and maybe it's just not wanting to do this for 5 hours. But we got 18 roster spots to fill kind of across all the teams. And, some teams, we got Kate Upton's TDs, who is probably maybe one of the more filled out rosters, 65.9 million left. Bobby, who we talked about before, has 55.7 million left. And I mean, Bobby's got some nice guys. He's a little Chiefs heavy with Hunt and Hill, but OBJ and Rodgers. So he's got a nice core, and he's paid for it. We got Baker goes for 4 years, $58.5 million.
Yeah, I think that probably is bound to be a steal. You and I both like Baker Mayfield, but you're paying for a prospect, a non-rookie contract, and you're paying for a rookie on a veteran contract at that point. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have LaShawn McCoy. I think Devontae called us out in the chat for the awkward silence when we all looked at Jameis Winston's face. I think that's fair, right? Like I try not to say anything at all if I don't have something nice to say. So I'll turn LaShawn McCoy over to you gentlemen too. So.
I think he could be a value if the cards play right. I think he's already up to 1 year, $17.5 million. I'm curious whether teams are going to give more than a year on Buffalo's dumpster fire of an offense. So I mean, we'll see where this goes. I see some 1 year offers, 2 year offers. 2 years, 30 million Kate Upton TDs right now. Bernard, what do you think?
Definitely, potentially one of the biggest values in the league. He's one of the few guys left that, if he plays the full season, he's virtual lock to get 350, 300 touches on the year. Granted, it's going to be possibly on one of the worst offenses in the league, who just lost 3 of their top offensive linemen. So there's massive questions. Obviously, the off-the-field issues have to factor that in. But if he plays, even on a bad offense, he has such a huge workload that, there's little bust potential if he actually plays.
Yeah, so he's crossed the $20 million threshold over 1 year. So he will get paid what a running back of his stature should for this season. And I think what you say is well said, Brennan. I tend to be of a like mind with you on that one. And he's still fetching it as people like look down the board. Our league was not immune to the running back run, and there's scarce talent left at the running back position. So.
To jump on board that, I think there's talent. It just, there's so much question mark after the first, dozen, 15 running backs. I mean, you're already into the committee situations. You're already into rookies. There's questions bound once if you miss that, first couple of tiers of running backs.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting to see who places whom in those different tiers. And so, like Goody pointed out, we wanted to walk away with one running back we viewed as an RB1. It'll be interesting to go back post-draft and make sure. I mean, I think we probably overpaid for what we wanted out of McCaffrey a little bit, but we saw him as the last of that tier. And
right. We got Tariq Cohen going for a fair bit of money right now. 3-year deal, $38 million. Love the potential upside. Lucha Vikings, Ryan Swenson got in on there. Should be interesting. Here comes Darius Geis. This one should be a pretty interesting bid.
Yep. And I think Swenson's strategy is interesting. He's got 2 players, Cohen and Ronald Jones, so he's clearly trying to seek value at the running back position. Yep. So, as a DC native, this is interesting to see Geis in Washington going for so much. He's definitely fetching running back 1 value at this point.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a 1 and 2 year deal, so some people are confident in him that he'll end up the bell cow, and that apparently Chris Thompson is not a threat in people's mind in our PPR format. So,
I mean, Chris Thompson, the news on him is still November. He was talking that he may not be fully healed until then. I mean, Geis definitely could be a value if he turns into RB1. I mean, I like how he runs. Seems like that he's passed kind of the smell test so far. Been really good guy. Coaching staff seems to like him. It could turn into a value. I mean, but at the same time, he's already up to 3 years, $73.5 million, which, Luke, you and I talked behind the scenes of maybe targeting a guy like Geis on a 3-year deal as our RB2, but I wasn't necessarily thinking at this price tag. So I think I'm going to, dumpster dive and try to find some value maybe later on.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, he could return this value. I like Washington's offensive line, and I like that the big stacks in our league are not backing down from one another right now, right? That's good for everybody. Again, this has been a really fun match. We've got some really interesting, but right now the people with money are still throwing it and willing to use it. And so I would anticipate that guys doesn't get out of here for a minute as people kind of see him perhaps at the end of a tier 2.
All right, yeah, Luke, try to check your sound. There was a fair bit of static right there. Obviously, we're doing this live, so we're not editing any of it. So just giving you a heads up. Darius Geis already up to 4 years, over $100 million. It's funny, I guess there's pluses and minuses to the live auction. Just kind of got a text from my friend Josh of the Legion of Griffin, said that basically that he got a phone call towards the end of the bidding, so the live stream started right after he hung up. So he wasn't sure where he was going with that, so not divulging any more strategy, but gotten him in other circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. So
he wasn't going to go any higher than he did.
Yep.
But McCaffrey Geis is almost up to where McCaffrey is. Geis is at 450, 400.
I don't know if you're looking on the live feed, but it's the first time that I got a little bit of lag on the screen. So I can't even see where guys is at the moment. So.
Okay, let's see. We got Russell Wilson.
All right, Russell Wilson showing up in the quarterback league, and
Russell's gonna fetch big dollars. Still, like probably the last of like the perceived elite quarterbacks. Let's see. We got the Lucha Vikings have 154.3 million in cap space, so they could be a player in this. They basically right now have Tariq Cohen and Ronald Jones on the roster.
So what do you think about Russell Wilson's situation in Seattle this year, Matt? You're up there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy I've loved in the past. I really like how he carries himself and just how he is as a player. I mean, I'm kind of torn because I think that I think the defense is going to be middling, not as good as they've been in the past, but they have some young guys. I think that they're definitely committed to running the ball more. I think where Russell Wilson has value, if you believe in it, is in the passing game to the running backs. I think he finally has some guys who can catch the ball, in the situation and take it to the house. So I like that aspect of it. I mean, if Doug Baldwin is out for extended period of time, I mean, that's going to be a huge challenge. And I think the days of Russell Wilson running for 60 yards a game are probably behind him. So, because he's just too valuable to the franchise. I feel like Russell Wilson's kind of like, from an NFL quarterback standpoint, as long as you have a team, like, he kind of fits like the Rodgers when the Packers don't have a good defense. I feel like that team will be in the mix as long as they have a guy like Wilson. But like from a fantasy perspective, there's some red flags and some risk. What about you, Bernard?
I'm kind of with you. I mean, he's an elite level QB. He's going to have a high fantasy floor just because he's so good at escaping the pocket, extending plays. Like you said, if Baldwin's gone, there's all kinds of issues in the receiving core. I do like, Procise and McKissick. I think they can, if they can stay healthy, I think they can be valuable assets, out of the short passing game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, right now he's 4-year, $134.5 million. So I mean, we're 57 players in, so we've actually made some pretty good progress in this auction. Luke's having some technical difficulties, so we'll just keep going on this. There's pluses and minuses to doing it live, obviously. So, we shall see what happens. Someone going for a third quarterback, it looks like, or are they just driving the prices up? I'm trying to follow the chat as well.
Yeah.
Let's see, like Benson calling himself the price enforcer. It's good to always have those in the auction. So Benson's on air rate. He's already got 3 quarterbacks. Hey Benson, just letting you know that that we have the 5 quarterback roster limit. So, but he should be interesting. The RSO Superchargers Marcus is definitely spending some money. So that's good. He's down to 47 million. He just got Russell Wilson, 4 years, 138.5 million, which is basically what Rodgers got. So, albeit a younger player, has a little more running ability. So, I mean, if you look, those Superchargers have. Oh, here goes Des Bryant. Maybe people think he's going to the Browns. This guy, Des, could go on a minimum offer, and maybe he's going for a little more money than that. But this is probably one of the few guys who's probably going to go for, I'm guessing like 5 million or less. So could be a nice little upside bench play there. let's see. That the question is, do you want Bernard? In this case, would you be in on Dez like at a cheap price, or are you too mindful of your bench spots?
In this case, considering I don't even know if he's going to play this year, I probably wouldn't be buying in on him. It's not for me. I don't think he has enough upside at this stage to be worth the risk.
Yeah. It's kind of take a step back. Yeah, I understand that. Looking at the RSO supercharged, they got Rivers, Wilson, and Newton, and McCoy and Fournette.